Here we are. Welcome to the Condor DM show. Tonight it is off script, so I have something in the title. Feats. We'll talk about that at one point. But yeah, here I am. Uh, been a few days since I've done a stream, so it's good. Little break in between is always healthy, right? And I just dive in. I don't wait. Just dive in. Just dive right in. How you doing? Not the normal lighting because it's actually like cool here and it's early enough in the day that I get some natural light. Still got a little bit of light in here, which is good, right? Don't always need the bright lights all the time. How you doing? So of course, I recently put out a video that probably was a little a little drama, very very tiny bit, right? And that got some people upset on X. You know, the war game related people, the people that claim D&D is a war game. It's not. It's clearly not a war game. Is there aspects and inspiration that comes from that, that hobby? Of course there is. Can you find language uh in the game that will have to do with that? But that's the same thing as finding language like character development in the writing or something like that comes from other worlds and other things that help make up what we call tabletop role-playing games. So it's like i I get a kick out of simple-minded people. you'll you'll make the clear and obvious case that it's not a war game, right? And they'll say like, well, the word campaign is in there. Where does that come from? It's like the words character development, that term is in there. Where does that come from? It doesn't mean we're actors, right? It's like, of course, there are words that come from some of the inspiration that leads to the game being developed, but there's so many sides to what a tabletop role playing game is. It's not one, and there's only certain aspects from each side borrowed to make a sort of combination thing that comes together to be its own thing, right? Wargaming is wargaming. D&D is not wargaming. It's just a different beast altogether. That's it. That's it. And it's like I tell people, it doesn't matter your word salad game or how far you stretch it. It's just not a war game. It's not. It's just not a war game. A war game is a war game, right? A war game is pretty direct in what it is. I mean, it's quite obvious. Like, it's a war game. You know what a war game is. A tabletop role playing game thing is separate. It's not there to replace wargaming. It's not wargaming in itself. And from drama class to writing to games, board games, war games, many things inspire what comes together to be Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of other tabletop role playing games. Dragon Quest is a better representation of what you call, like, say, a tabletop role playing game being close to a war game. Dragon Quest is way more a better representation of that mindset. That's why I joked with one guy. I said, if you want to play a war game or you want that, go play go play Dragon Quest. That's Dungeons and Dragons is not that. Dragon Quest is a game that leans more into the wargaming mindset than D&D. Oh, and I hate arguing with simple-minded people that have a deceitful agenda. It's like, it's not a war game. Well, it's like, where's the word campaign come from? It's like, yeah, dude, there's the term character development comes from like acting and drama class. It doesn't mean that's what we're doing here. That's not what D&D is. It's not a drama class with game rules. Of course, you're going to find language that is that fits. I mean, I don't deny where the ideas get inspired at first. I don't deny that, and of course, you're going to see language carry over, especially when the people making this new non-war game are war gamers originally. They're going to use some of the similar language to explain what's going on, but it's different. And you got to explain that to simple-minded people that have some weird agenda. It's it's like calling the game master another player at the table. I say it depends on what they're doing. Are they working or playing? Like, to me, the closest thing to playing as a game master is pure improvisation. It's when you don't do a lot of prep work and you do a lot of improvising on your end. That's an activity that you're doing. If you're just performing, working, I just don't see that as the same as playing. And there's a different title. It's like, it's just game mastering. You're just managing the table. You're doing all kinds of different things. So it's not the same, right? Like, if you gave me a game where the idea of the game is you're going to run around and play it, and the most I can do on the video game, say, is you run up there with your character and do something, and I decide the outcome of that, but I'm not really running up with the character. I'm not participating, with the activity the same way. I don't count that as exactly playing. I call that still managing a game, and that's what a game master does. It's like the banker from Monopoly, especially if you don't play the game. It's just the banker from Monopoly. They're not just, if you're not rolling the dice and moving a piece around, you're not participating that way. You're not just another player in the game. I don't know. Simple things. We're going to talk about feats at one point. I'm going to say why I think they're really crap. And I think they really are. I think feats in D&D is one of the worst things they put into the game. I'm going to explain why. And I had an experience finally using feats a little bit more as someone who played Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm like, good for a video game, not good for a tabletop role-playing game. Just completely different piece. So I'm going to say what I'm going to say about feats. I'm not going to say it yet. I'm going to wait till people are around or somebody's around. Or just not right away. Here we are. So yeah, people on X a few people are upset with me about the wargaming thing, because all you got to do is tell some old school guy who has a deceitful agenda about wargaming. D&D is not wargaming. You're going to be right. It's not wargaming. But man, some old guys are going to lose their minds, because there's a lot of things they justify behind that statement that just doesn't hold water. And it's like, dude, I'm sorry. It just doesn't hold water. It's not wargaming. Wargaming is wargaming. You have to explain that. I mean, you got to understand, like 90% of wargamers back when D&D first came out rejected D&D, saying it's not wargaming and it's not something that will replace wargaming. I mean, a complete rejection. I don't care what people in modern times say. You got to go back to the real wargamers and their honest take on D&D, the fairy game. They rejected it, and for good reason. And of course, I mean, you could simplify it down, but it is what it is. The majority of DMs from 1974, depends on when you want to start, but from 1974, say, when it officially comes out with Dungeons and Dragons, from then till the late 90s, the majority of DMs do pure theater of the mind. They don't even use miniatures from wargaming. And this is the majority. And you see in the early 90s, some of the guys in the hobby start experimenting with plastic, making their own plastic, making some plastic figurines, doing a bit more on terrain than they've done even in the 80s. And then by the early 2000s, WotC finally just says, okay, we're just going to go straight to plastic. No more experimenting. We're going to make it plastic. And so then you start seeing more people from the early 2000s, even with old school D&D, because now plastic figurines are available. More people definitely started using miniatures commonly. But from 1974 to late 1990s, the majority of DMs in the entire hobby ran the game pure theater of the mind, because it wasn't a war game. And then high scale combat, like if we're talking about wargaming, it's not wargaming. It's not a focus on just fighting all the time. You're in a town. Like, just look at all the aspects to what D&D is, and you realize it's not a war game. It's not. War games are war games, and they're very specific in what they are. You know what you're doing when you start. You're having a war. That's a war game. You have an army. Like I remember one guy said on X, "Well, it's a war game, but this is just like at the end of the war. This is what they do with their care. Some of the characters go like, oh, I'm like, well, so at the end of the war, right? Yeah. So when they stop doing the war thing, this is what they go do. Yeah. Well, so D&D is what they do after you stop focusing on the war. Yeah. Yeah, because it's not a war game. That's I don't know. Well, it's I understand why the argument's there because the wargaming thing is a gimmick. It's an agenda behind certain things, and people want to justify certain things. So calling it a war game, calling D&D war gaming, it's just a justification for certain. It's an agenda pusher. What's even funnier is watching some of these guys that are very two-faced about the wargaming stuff, and they push their agendas. Go on about WotC. I'm like, well, here's where you sort of break your legs, guys, because you're going to say WotC has a deceitful agenda. And they'll be like, yeah. I'm like you. I'm like, you got to be honest people to call other people out. You can't be a bunch of two-faced people with agendas and then call out other people with agendas. It just doesn't work. You got to clean up your own backyard before you start going on with other people. You just got to do that. It's necessary. You know, if there wasn't agendas to push, there'd be nobody. Like if there wasn't some deceitful agenda to be pushed, nobody would care to even bother calling D&D a war game. They would just say, no, it's not war gaming. It's its own thing. Yeah, I know. So once you realize that, that's why there's only a few people like it. But it's very, see, here's the thing. Why does it matter to me to even bring it up sometimes? It's because it's people with influence on other people that are pushing this stuff. The silent majority in the background that doesn't say much, some of them won't care, but the thing is they have no influence on what's being said. They're not pushing certain things. They're not trying to influence the hobby in a certain direction. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not concerned. Like, it's good. I know the majority of you don't care. That's good. It's like, why would so many people get offended by saying D&D is not a war game? It's how many people get mad at me about it. Amazes me. It's like it's not, but why are you so mad that it's not? Like, why me pointing out this fact does it bother you? It's not a war game, so why do we call certain things campaigns? Well, it's like, yeah, I get you're borrowing some language, like just like the term character development comes from drama class. It doesn't mean D&D is you running a drama class with rules. Just aspects. Lots of gimmicks are made with inspiration from other things, and they borrow sometimes language, sometimes gimmicks from that thing, but still doesn't make it that thing, right? Anyway, there's my pushback on calling it wargaming because it's not wargaming. It's Dungeons and Dragons. It's a tabletop role playing game. You're playing individual characters who you're developing and adventuring around with. That's it. Sometimes you do dungeon crawls. Sometimes you run through a forest. Man, sometimes you travel to different realities, right? But it's not wargaming. To even have to have that debate with somebody is sort of stupid, but you realize the only reason you end up in that debate with people is because they have an agenda to push. Ah. But there, that was my nerd argument recently on X. Had a few people a little cranky with me. I swear, some people think in this world, they think if they like the wrong answer on something, suddenly the wrong answer will become right. I've noticed this, like, they'll be like, I'll be objectively right. Somebody will be clearly wrong. But I'll see, like, the guy get, like, 5 or 6 likes on this post that he can't back up. It's like, I'll make a clear argument, or I'll put out a case I made for something, and somebody will be like, "You're wrong," even though the case I made is completely solid. And then 5 or 6 people will like that post, and it's like, dude, if somebody says 1 + 1 = Jello, no matter how many times somebody goes and presses the like button on that post, 1 + 1 will still not equal Jello. It really doesn't matter. And we should honestly be able to talk about the real history of the hobby, and especially Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I don't get why that's a big issue. I think it's the dishonesty and agenda pushing that leads to some of the crap you see today that people don't like. And then another thing I've noticed, people get mad at WotC for not doing certain things. Like, it's like, whatever you say, WotC, they you don't purchase D&D and the rights to the name and the game without having certain privileges. And it's a privilege that they get to have. It doesn't matter what old school people think. It doesn't matter what TSR former staff members think. They paid a lot of money for that privilege, and they have a privilege of deciding where that goes. Like, imagine you're a TSR staff member, a retired one. You've been out of the gimmick as far as being in the business in a deep way for a long time, and what you have to say is so counter to WotC's approach that it would actually harm the work they're doing if they were to present you or give you a platform. It could be bad for business. You should be like, well, WotC's not bringing me in and asking me questions. So it's like, dude, would what you say on camera be something that would be damaging to WotC's approach to the hobby and to the game? Yeah. Well, you think they're going to bring you in to talk to you if you do that? No, that's just not good business. It's like, well, you can say what you want, but they're smarter when it comes to business than TSR was. Of course, they're not going to bring you in if you they're going to like bring you on a documentary and ask you a question, and then you say something that is completely damaging to their approach and what they're doing. Of course, they're not going to bring you on. It's just how it is. Now I noticed Margaret Weiss was not seen at the Gen Con thing, and a lot of people are like, well, we're seeing the other person, but we're not seeing Margaret Weiss all the time for Dragonlance. I'm like, well, that sounds like, is there some drama to it? Like, what's the gimmick? And then when you check out the background, Margaret Weiss retired from doing any serious grind work when it comes to writing. And then you go check out her social media account. She is completely giving the blessing to what's happening with Dragonlance. And you're like, oh, so there's no drama. There is none. She's retired. She's definitely not going on camera. I mean, it's easy to understand why she might not do that at this age. And she's given her blessing on the work. Like, she's retired from serious writing. She's letting other people do the grind work on the new Dragonlance material. So be it. Like, she should probably give some advice. I mean, they're probably going to talk to her, but they're announcing her name as to give her respect for being part of it. They're not like ignoring her name, but she's not making a public appearance. That makes sense. She's retired. She doesn't write. So I was like, that's creating drama out of nothing. I could see if you went to her social media and she was giving a hint of not giving her blessing to the work going on, but she's obviously giving her blessing, and she'll be paid money. Good money. She's retired from grinding work of writing. Probably not going to have the same workload into the project as she's had in the past. That makes sense. This is the privilege. It's the privilege you get when you pay for things. That's why I'm not mad at WotC myself. I personally don't care. And I don't have a big connection with the stuff they do. I don't think it's like old school at all. I don't count it like original D&D, the WotC editions, but I don't care. Sorry to bore people with my lack of caring and not seeing drama there. And then there's one TSR old staff member that thinks WotC is going to go down to the dirt. They're going to fail. And lose everything, and I'm like, dude, no. Hasbro is behind that shit. They're not losing anything. And they made a direction change. Who knows how far that's going to be? A little bit of one, not fully, but definitely leaning into some more stuff. They realize there's a lot of people on the fence, right? And then a recent video I did, another one was about the old school echo chamber. And one guy said, "Yeah, you're right. He doesn't say that I'm wrong." In this comment, he's like, there's other echo chambers as well." And I'm like, there is, but the reason I sometimes give a bit more to the old school is it's been around for decades. It's bigger, it's grown bigger, and it's well more established. When you get to the woke, whatever you want to call it, echo chamber in the 5e world, it's a very tiny portion of 5e people. Like, and it's only backed by WotC, but not that successfully at all, right? It's backed by big companies, but in reality, the majority of people I know that are 5e are not part of that bubble or echo chamber. And I put it the difference with most new school people. When you go to Matt Colville's videos, somebody I've talked about numerous times, that audience will let him say 30% of things that they don't agree with, and they'll still support him. They're not that extreme, right? The difference with the old school is you say sometimes 2% of what they disagree with, and there goes all your support, even if 98% is exactly what you do, everything they want. You're entertaining, you say what they want, you give them the content they want. Wow, that's a lot of work from your end to appease to that crowd. Then you say like one or two fucking things they don't agree with. There goes all your support. Done. And that's a very overkill active audience, and it's a large echo chamber. It's one that's been established and built and backed for decades, right? And they're used to having control. And at certain points, that echo chamber has had complete control over the dialogue, especially online, right? I mean, you just all you got to do is go back to the old school tabletop role playing game forums, especially the D&D ones, and they would be the moderators. They would be the heads of those forums. And if you were saying something they don't agree with, you were easily suspended, if not banned, straight from the forums. Your post would be deleted. They had complete iron grip type of control over the dialogue. And that's why they got really upset at when YouTube and Facebook shows up to the scene. Because when they first came out, the guys had just no way. It was like, here's people we banned for years, finally able to openly speak, right, to the community without our complete control over that language, like what they're saying. That's why I talk about them a bit more, because they just have more sway in the area of the hobby that they're in. It's all. That is all. I seen a few TTRPG people or people around the tabletop role playing game hobby, a couple of women. Uh, I'll say women. I won't say who, because there's more than one. But talking about people being blocked on X. And I've seen some other guys talk about like blocking on X or blocking on anything. Uh, I just I don't. It's I get asked about it all the time. Like, what did this person like? They'll notice I have somebody blocked. Somebody will ask me, "What did this person do to you, man?" Like they ask it like it's a big issue. It's like nothing. I just don't want to see what they have to say, so I block them. That's it. Or sometimes I'll give people an opportunity who I'm a little squeamish about, and then if they drop that opportunity, be like, all right. And if I don't want to talk to people, block. I personally find the X experience way better by just blocking people that way. I don't know, and it's not that dramatic to me. I forget people I block after a short period of time. I have to be reminded that they even exist. To me, it's like blocking on X is like just ignoring people. I ignore in life, which is like normal shit. I just don't over dramatize blocking. I don't care about it. It's like, dude, I don't want to interact with you. That's it. Or in some cases, you might be connected. And if I don't know you, you're a stranger to me and you're connected to other people, yeah, I might block you for that reason. Oh, yeah, they're in with them. Fuck that. Block. And that's it. That's as deep as it goes for me. If you come up with some other reason I block somebody, you're usually confused. I mean, there's sometimes it can be direct, like, oh, that guy's just being an ass or a dishonesty. That's another reason. Sometimes I'll forget why I blocked somebody, but that will be like usually a dishonesty can be a big part of it. So it's like that wargaming stuff. There were a few guys that were just completely two faced with their responses to me. So I was like, block, fuck you, I block liars, and they're strangers to me. I'm not going to care. I don't fucking care. They shouldn't care either. I don't know why they would care. Like who cares? I'm blocked by all kinds of people. I don't even know why, nor do I care. I'll notice it. Like I'll go to agree with a comment and I'll realize I'm blocked. I'm like, oh, that person doesn't like me. Oh well, click. I just don't think about it and I don't give it too much grief, right? Brock cola and cheese doodles. I'm gonna mention Feats at one point there, Black Roast Nice. So yeah, I guess I know you don't go on X, so you missed a little bit of heat I had. I put up that pro video and mentioned of course I mentioned the one thing I know some old school guys have an agenda, but which was wargaming, and they flipped out on me. Some guys, some not all, very few to be honest. When you look at the amount of people, right? But still, there was some blow up, and I mean the views on one of the posts I put up there is amazes me, almost 10,000 now. And I'm usually someone who's shadow banned on X, so the chances most people see my post is very low. So when I seen some like a post going that big, I was like, really over the wargaming thing? Fuck, so pathetic, so pathetic, so pathetic. That's all you got to say, Black Rose. Tell some old school D&D. Oh, I got to fix this. Tell some old school D&D guy that you're like, yeah, that D&D is not wargaming, and they flip out. It is. No, it's not. It's like I said earlier. One guy says to me, "Well, if it's not wargaming, why do they use the word campaign?" I'm like, "Well, why does the game use the term character development at one point or another? Do you think that means D&D is a drama class with rules?" Such simpleness. I believe it. I just don't get it. Here's a simple like Black Rose. Wargaming is wargaming. Tabletop role playing gaming is tabletop. It's just a different thing. Like you're playing a character, you're developing a character, you're going on adventures in the forest or dungeon. Like it does it borrow aspects from wargaming. Of course it does. It borrows aspects from drama class. It borrows aspects from storytelling, right? But it doesn't make it any one of these things. That's always been my argument. But here's what really happens, Black Rose. I just think some guys have an agenda. They well, not think. I know they do. But if you go back in the old school era, you see it today. Here's what weirds me out, Black Rose. I never met anybody in 1987 who argued that D&D was a war game. Actually, the war gamers hated the fairy game D&D. 90% of them never crossed over into the hobby. They fucking hated D&D and said, yeah, because at first, from what I heard back in 1974, at first, wargamers thought that D&D was some attempt to replace their hobby. Not that it was wargaming, but an attempt to bring another hobby that would replace their hobby. And they gave that up after a few years, realizing it's not replacing because it's not even the same thing. It's just a completely different thing. And the fact that it's not wargaming is why they calmed down. Yeah, I think the wargaming thing, especially nowadays, has to do with justifying a lot of silliness. It's like the miniature thing. It's I had AJ Pickett on here, who's someone who, like many of them, if you're properly in the old school, back in the late 90s, because from 74 up to like the 90s, the majority of DMs do pure theater of the mind. That's just commonplace. That is so common, it's silly. Very few people use miniatures. Uh, I mean, some do, but very few. You're talking like 1 to 2% of the entire hobby is using miniatures in any regular way. You get the rest of people really not. In the early 90s, though, it went from a painting hobby to people attempting to bring it more into the gaming world. That was AJ talks about it, them making their own plastics. And why would they start making their own plastics in the early 90s? Because most people, it's a barrier. Most people cannot, especially kids, cannot afford the metal miniatures. The majority of hobby is young people, and they had to bring their money, and a lot of poor people do. They had to bring their money together just to buy like the books. Like think about it, most groups have to cycle their money together through the different kids to buy books. Nobody's buying a miniature. Almost nobody could afford them. Right? It's only into the early 90s you start seeing people finally start making their own plastic, which is, I mean, genius stuff, right? And because there's more plastic miniatures starting to be made by these amateur groups, you do start seeing their attempt to actually start making more terrain. But note, they're not experimenting on making terrain this way until the early 90s. Hey, Bill probably knows what I'm talking about, and I'm not shitting on the history of D&D. I think it's actually cool. I have nothing against talk about the real history. They start focusing more on the terrains and miniatures in the early 90s. And because now you got plastics being made finally in miniatures, so that some of the groups are actually having miniatures to actually be able to do some stuff. So they start experimenting. And AJ was talking about AJ Pickett it's a great talk I had with him, because they start coming up with all the different ways to make the terrains and experimenting with lower walls, higher walls you can't see. But from 1974 up to the early 90s, it's almost not happening because most kids can barely afford the books that are coming into the hobby. And even most of the adults are just playing pure theater of the mind, because it's a lot of non-war gamers. They're actually just doing the default way of doing combat. And combat's not like always like 30 versus 30. It's not like war combat. But WotC finally just breaks the whole thing and makes, like I said, in the early 2000s, they bring out plastic miniatures, and old school guys leaned heavily into WotC's plastic miniatures, right? And not just WotC, but a few years later, other groups start coming out making, now that they have access to it through the WotC stuff, you start seeing more miniatures getting made, and miniatures become a really regular thing from the early 2000s on. And it's very interesting. I'd love to see a good documentary done of the early 90s when they start making their own plastics and their own terrain, the experiments of like wall size and everything. That would be an interesting fucking documentary. But to do it, you'd have to tell the truth about D&D from 74 up to the early 90s. And the truth does not play into the agenda a lot of old school D&D guys have, especially about miniatures and wargaming. It just does not lean into it. It leans away from it. Like, imagine, how would the guys who call D&D wargame, how do they feel about AD&D 1E getting criticized into a fucking gutter about the fact that it had nothing to do with wargaming, and all aspects, all sort of rooted connections to wargaming is completely gone. You go back to OD&D and the chainmail related rules, people forget they were optional, and most people weren't using them. That's the thing. They were like optional rules that were put in the back burner because most people didn't have miniatures. It's like they're there, but most people aren't using them. That's just the truth. And they're optional. They're not even default into the game, right? And of course there's some language used. So it's the real history of D&D does not line up with wargaming at all. And you'd also have to go back to the point where it's 90% of the war gamers reject D&D. They hated it. They called it the fairy game and made fun of it and said it had nothing to do with their hobby. And from 74 to 77, there's a lot of comments made by war gamers about it's just true. From 74, 77, a lot of war gamers were sitting there trying to accuse Gary and them of trying to replace their hobby with this new game, only to realize, no, it's just not wargaming. It's not trying to replace what we're doing at all. And so to do a documentary on D&D, you'd have to blow up these things. So when guys go D&D as wargaming, I'm like, well, all the facts would be you can't do an honest documentary about the history of Dungeons and Dragons up till now, not an honest one, and still call it wargaming. You could talk about the roots, you could talk about where some language comes from, but you can't call it that. And that means all the agendas that guys push now, they would feel if they don't call it wargaming, it's not supported. Like the miniature use. It's wargaming. That's why we use miniatures. Yeah, but well, okay. Well, then why weren't miniatures used from 74 up to the early 90s on a regular? Why do you have most people not doing it? It's just saying. Just saying. Now, it shouldn't all be a big issue, Black Rose or Bill, but I mention details like this because I see guys out there pushing nonsense, and I'll push back and say it's not that. And then as soon as I say it's not that, just you get all these guys with agendas blowing up. I'm like, okay. And I mean, they're religious about this stuff. Fair enough. I don't know what to say most of the time. But we're going to get in the feats beyond that stuff. We're going to get in the feats. Maybe we'll do it now. I got Bill and you around. Okay. There's one aspect I like of D&D, and it's the realism beyond the start of the game. And what I mean by this is old school D&D is this. It never denied there's a gamey aspect to what we do. Obviously there is, right? I've always believed there's a gamey aspect, but the gamey aspect is always something as part of the social contract. It's like a host ruling something. That's something initially you know before you get into it. So some things, small things I might ignore, like a chef arrow, because we're extreme into our realism sometimes. But like say a chef arrow, I'll give you a good example of something I would host rule in. I allow guys to use chef arrows, shoot chef arrows from short bows. Now, in reality, you might not be able to do that. And in the game, it says you can't fire chef arrows from a short bow, but I don't personally care. It's something I don't think ruins the realism or ruins the illusion of realism. And I don't think it harms the game or makes the game feel unrealistic to do this, right? We wouldn't have played every day during lunch if we had to do that. Yeah, that's exactly, Bill. Most casual play back in the day was exactly what you're talking about. Get together with some books, dice at a table, lunchtime, wherever, and just play. Well, you can't do that if you always need a board with miniatures. Now, WotC tries to always show a group because it's a very dishonest view too. And it's too bad we can't talk about the truth because the wargamers have to accept this deceit. They show groups regularly with a map between everybody with miniatures on it. Now, Bill, when me and you were in the hobby in the real old school, growing up like into the hobby, regular table was no miniatures, no mat in the middle, no nothing. Books, paper, pencils, dice, maybe a screen for the DM. That's a real looking D&D table, and that's what the D&D table was like for decades, right? I mean, that was most D&D tables even going into the late 90s. And even when they brought out plastic miniatures, so many guys were still just commonly doing theater of the mind that their tables still didn't change. But yet WotC will even show a supposed game from 1987, and they'll actually show the pad with the miniatures in the middle. It's like, no, that's not how we played, dude. That's a complete rewriting of history right there. That's just not true. Okay, back to Feats for a second. So, like the rule with the chef here on that is just here's my gimmick. It's that's going in. That's a social contract that you have with the chef hero. But people would know that right away. Here's what I would never do is halfway through the game, it's like in D&D, when something happens, you need to be able to explain it. So if you say you start off and your character because of the rules doesn't wear metal armor, right? It's because it would affect what they do. It makes it that they can't cast. If in the next level or two, your guy can wear metal armor now and cast spells in metal armor, what will you be asked most of the time? How? And is by doing that, regardless of upgrading, because upgrading is supposed to be gradual, small improvements. That's a major improvement, but it's an unrealistic one. And when I play Baldur's Gate 3, that's where Feats really stuck out to me as a sort of video game format. It's like, okay, I'm playing the thief. I can't really use two weapons without, with normal rolls. I'd have to do it minus if I'm wearing heavier armor. But if you pick the right feat, now you don't have to. Feats can up stats. They can make it that you go from not being able to use something, you use something. And there's no realistic reason other than like a video game format for it. Or there'd be other bonuses to a feat that just made no sense. Like to me, when I think feat, I think of pulling a feat off of the game. It's not a bonus you're meant to get. It's an action you pulled off despite the lack of bonuses you have. That's what makes it a feat. That's what makes it amazing. Like you're doing this amazing stuff, yet you don't have bonuses. Any feat in the game is a bonus, or the feat to stats is a stat upgrade. Like how do you get stronger? How do you get more intelligent? Well, that's a video game aspect. And feats to me is part of what makes characters quite a bit stronger than they should be early on. And it can really upgrade a character so much that I get why people say it's like a superhero gimmick. And Baldur's Gate 3, they even limit the levels. And you'd be like, well, because I think you have like level 12 or something. You can't go beyond that because at a certain point, the game completely breaks. And I say break, I just mean being able to challenge players with their characters completely changes at a certain level. And there's a lot of things purposely left out of the Baldur's Gate 3 game, which you can mod in. But I mean, even if you mod it in, it blows the game up. Because these are abilities way beyond being able to be challenged. It's why old school guys will call it like a superhero game. But feats, I would say they miss the point of what the game is because it treats it like a video game. It makes the challenging part of the game. Well, here's what I think Bill and Black Rose would agree with. The challenges, the lack of something is thrilling. What I mean is it creates thrilling moments, thrilling gameplay. It's like, okay, man, this is likely to never improve. You're not too good here. So when you try something with that low score, holy fuck, there's a good chance it won't work. But there are moments in the game where you just feel like I gotta try it even with my low score. And I mean, when you hit that number, when you roll on that low score, it's fucking amazing. But there's a good chance you're going to fail, and it's going to be very dramatic to fail. Like you're not going to succeed here. You're going to fail, and that thing is really going to play against you, and the game can become very deadly and threatening because that can happen. There is a living on the edge stuff with D&D that I love. And there's a sense of realism with that. There's that living on the edge of a low score, a low thing, a thing that doesn't improve, a thing where you have to learn how do you play without the benefit. And the other thing I love about limitations is you find out you as a player in your mind, you're not limited. So it might be that you might not have certain scores, but what will happen? This is how I remember when I first started in, I would go into a dungeon with players that had all kinds of gimmicks. I did a video on these different gimmicks that I ran into, where players would have all kinds of these really clever ways about getting items and getting things and throwing like a fish hook thing in to like drag something out. But how would you get to the point of pressuring players to think in this sort of creative way? Well, it's because they lack something, but what you find out is the more you're lacking, the more it's going to force you. How do you make it better? How do you improve things if you can't just get a score up? Well, this is when you might come up with tricks, right? Tricks to avoid things, tricks to think through things. How do you get around something you're really not good at? And the more you're forced to have to think that way because of your limitations, the more creative you find out your mind is. And the more you have points to replace, like it's like, oh, I can just get a plus. So at a certain point, it becomes a video game because you no longer think like this. Now you'll just look to get the bonus. I'll wait to get the feat. I guess I just can't do that right now. Where in an old school D&D game, you're never going to get that bonus. It's never coming. So if you want the thing and you're likely to fail on a dice roll, what do? This is where you find out people are fucking geniuses, right? They can be. If put under the right pressure, it's like you produce the diamond. You get ideas like when lighting isn't that easy, and the dungeon thing is a big issue, and you can't always get lighting spells and make it really easy on yourself. Like, say you go to old school, there's some guys that will homebrew stuff or host rule stuff in to make the light function in dungeons easy. But when you don't do that, when you don't make light functions that easy, this is when you get guys that go out and learn, well, if I cut a branch off a tree and I split the branch, there's a resin that comes out. And I can put a rock down between that. I can even sort of take something and tie that together. Could even be a plant, whatever. Tie that together, and I can light that up. And it might only burn for 30 to 45 minutes, but it will be hotter. I'll be able to light a fire with this because you find out through your research that that's going to burn hotter than a normal torch, right? And this branch can be a torch that can go up to 45 minutes instead of an hour. But you can go make 5 or 6 of these if you can't afford a bunch of torches coming into the dungeon or you run out. If you always have a magic coin with light on it, or you have a caster, or you have things that are more convenient, the easier things are, the less thinking goes into the mind when it comes to coming up with shit to deal with what's in front of you. Like at one point, if you just get enough bonuses, that perception check is going to save you from traps. You stop using a stick to find traps before you run into them. Right? Like what I'm saying is certain things replace certain things, and feats are a great example of guaranteed improvement of your character where Hazeg, where you'll lean on the feats, and you'll do that in video game format more than you will just leaning on the fact that you will never get something improved, right? Hazeg, what's up, my friend? But yeah, I find feats, I found them as optional things for second edition. And every DM I talked to for 2E said, we looked at feats and said, we will never ever use these. These are game breaking destructive. They would be no good because all they'll do is push up stats and leave players not needing to deal with their lack of something. And it is the lacking area that where you find players become creative because they're forced to. Or it's the chance taking, that thrill of chance taking when you got to make a dice roll without just things going up. And the gradualness of leveling up never usually killed that. It just made early part of the game where thrilling should be, and you should be better at it later on. But that's just through doing. Oh, good. Very good. Very, very good. I did Warhammer. I got the Warhammer stuff pretty much done. I had to play. I forget what time in the morning. There Sunday morning. And then I played last night, but we did our 3 days of that. Very happy, right? Something I'm surprising people later in the month with. I did some gaming. It just took me a while I did it sort of privately. I played a little bit of third edition with a friend, and I played some basic role playing. So late August, I'll be covering BRP, basic role playing, and third edition D&D, surprisingly. And this is where I'm talking about it because Feats was something you run to the third edition, and I found it like just breaking. It wasn't as bad in second edition, but it was just if you have a set sort of gameplay, here's what I would say, Black Rose. I sort of get it, but I don't think this is needed if we were nicer. Like here, I'll give you a WotC does overkill correction from TSR over to WotC. Why does WotC do an overkill correction, or not correction, but sort of overkill change to the game in certain areas, like using feats on the regular? Here's the truth that a lot of us should admit, and a lot of us just admit. There's a minority of people that like old school grind. Now, the type of grind I'm talking about, but I mean, overall, in every section of the game. So I'm talking about like rolling a skill and being limited and needing to overcome something, right? There is an area of D&D that a minority didn't mind the grind, but the vast majority of people want something different, especially early in the game, is combat. They want combat where it's not a meat grinder. They want the game to be made for combat, but if it's a meat grinder, there's a reason why, because the game is not made for it. The reason you're making 4 or 5 characters, say in AD&D 1E, and doing a lot of fighting early on and losing characters, is because the reason you have to make that is if the game worked properly, the game would be made with some level of better survivability, and combat would be normal gaming. But most people in Black Rose, you'll know this because your own players prefer the early combat stuff. Players prefer to be in a lot of combat. They just do. They like the combat side of the game. And so imagine you're Wizards of the Coast and you're doing your research and you watch a lot of tables, and most people, even if it's a meat grinder, are going into combat often, especially early. That means no matter what the game is trying to teach players, it's being ignored. The meat grinder part should tell you right away you shouldn't be fighting all the time. You would think if you had to make up 5 characters that you just shouldn't make characters. It's not meant for that. Like, yeah, there's a Dungeon Crawl Classic, which is meant to be a meat grinder on purpose. There's an intent there. But old school D&D, there's no real intent. You just shouldn't be doing it. It's specifically not made for that. And all the encounter suggestions are all about players avoiding combat early on. I mean, all combat with goblins, combat with everything. Most people are doing combat. When you get to 3rd edition, feats and other aspects of the game make it that you can do in a more survivable way early combat. But it's an overkill. It's an overkill. That's why characters start getting too strong too quickly. You know what I suggested? I remember this. When I first came online, I'd seen all the debates going on with the old school before 3rd edition came out. And I had went on the forum and they got really mad at me. I suggested, guys, I'm not saying we should. I don't mind the game as it is. But I noticed a lot of people like combat, and it would be really wise if people in the community of D&D were more supportive of the concept of improving the amount of hit points characters have. It was a simple case I was making. Like, instead of ruining the game, instead of changing all these different rules, given that so many people go towards combat, what would make combat more survivable and workable in the game is to start initially the game with a few more hit points, enough to take 1 or 2 hits early, right? Like early gameplay that's slightly more survivable. Doesn't mean you have to keep pumping hit points going further out, but a few hit points on. I said, do that. I said, you would change the entire game. Combat becomes more survivable, and more people would want to play that game. I got crucified for saying that. And I remember the argument I made. I remember the thread I was in. I said, if we don't do that, and I said this directly, this is before 3rd edition, before Watts even buys it. I said, if we don't do that, somebody is going to come out with a game like D&D and is going to end up doing an overkill on this. And I even said, like, I swear to fuck, I predicted this. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it instinctively from how many sessions I ran, how much gaming I had done. I said, if we don't get open to making changes here in this community, somebody is going to come in and take what we have away from us. They're going to take it and they're going to go too far with it. They're not going to do this well. And I said, if anybody starts making D&D again, we're screwed. This is before I knew 3rd edition was going to be hitting the market. I didn't even realize he had straight out already bought them, but they were still making TSR products with TSR on it. Yeah, I get you. You're just experimenting with the 2E feats were a lot different, but yeah, the 2E feats was something I just didn't. It was an overkill on gameplay. I thought was fine, so I don't mind the challenging skill parts. It's just the combat area where I realized from DMing so often, I'd be like, guys, I I I would try to make it as clear to players all the time. The early combat is not is you're not meant for. You should be avoiding most of it, even in 2E. I would always sort of hint that you like if a guy's lost like a total party kill, be like, well, this is what happens when you're this early in the game. It's not made for combat like this, and you're running at hobgoblins the way you did. That's why you got wiped out. Like I'd make it as strong as I could teaching them, because I can't look. I'm not mommy and daddy. I'm not a therapist. I can't tell you how to play the game. My deal as a DM is to keep giving you wisdom, suggestion, and hints about what the game is. And I would say all the time, like pretty clearly, the game is not made for you to be running at fights like this early on when bad shit would happen. I'd say something like that just to say it. Not drill, not preach, not jump down people's necks, because as a DM, I always thought it is on the players to decide what they want to do. It was all about freedom and not preaching. I didn't want to. I hate the idea if I talk too much and I pressure players without them making the choice to do what they want to do. That's wrong. Like I really had it in my head that's completely the wrong thing to do as a DM. I'm not there to tell you how to play. You play whatever way you want. But I would tell you, if you play a certain way, you can't get mad at me for how you play. But like so, because a lot of my combat could be very dangerous early on. It's meant to be dangerous, meant to be something you should avoid. That's it. There's a lot of total party kills. I ran some meat grinder situations, but not because I'm purposely aiming people towards a meat grinder. It just happens. Like you should be avoiding combat. Like this combat is diddly. I'm not going to make the combat easier on you. Actually, I just never held back. I made combat as threatening as it should be. Right? It should be this threatening. It's going to be this bad. You should not be running into it. You will fucking die. Right? Most of the time. Like it's going to drain the little bit of resources you have. Healing is not easy. It takes time. I'm going to be a prick. I'm going to be just like in that zone of like, you're going to have to go camp for a while. You're not going to want to do that. Like, and what I'm hoping is it teaches them, like, you don't want to be camping all the time. Well, don't be fighting all the time, right? It's not that I would tell players how to play, but I would never make combat so the combat would be something that they could play. I wouldn't address the game. The game is what it is. And I purposely never added this into my game. No matter what I argue to people, I've never made a change. I just said it'd be nice if they would bring out a new D&D product where it would be adding a few more hit points, because I like the on death door optional rule, which is to -10. Yeah. Oh, I do too. When players start avoiding the combat, they can have a lot of fun. But I'll just tell you this, Bill. When you have one group of players that like to play a certain way for decades, that's really nice. You never have to like. I'm a public DM, so for the guys that play at home, some of the guys really don't relate with me because they have a group that plays a certain way. So the pressure on that DM to keep running into guys that want to play a different way is just, it doesn't exist. Right. But if you're a public DM like me and you're dealing with the other 90+% of players in the hobby that don't have a friend group, don't have a family at home to play with, which is the vast majority of players, that's the majority of people in the hobby. I mean, basically, without public DMs, you wouldn't have, in my opinion, you wouldn't even have a hobby. You wouldn't have a hobby. 10% of the people, if not less, are people that play at home. The other 90% of people are all people that need to go meet up with strangers. In some cases, these, from the majority, they can end up in. It's sort of funny when I meet at home guys and they go, I had to go to work and get a guy at work to join. I'm like, you're looking in the wrong places, because there are tons of players in the hobby, that you don't need to go to your job and convince that guy to play You brought somebody new in, but you're missing out. Right? Played 3 full combats with 12 characters sheets. Now they demand play Friday, so I had a great time. Yeah, 12 sheets demand to play. You couldn't even touch that with third edition or 4.5 edition. No, exactly, Bill. Exactly. But the overcorrection is another thing to do with the time consuming part for third edition and 4.5. Right? Most players, when I get out into the hobby as a public DM, most players, most, no matter what we want to think, most want combat early. Nice if you have a group at home that doesn't care. Nice if you know a sort of built-in group already that doesn't care. Nice if you're going to be playing with just one group for a long time, maybe for years, that doesn't care. You'll never know the pressure of that, right? But if you get out like me and it's like I got 2 real life groups. The second edition one, our guys, 3 of them had to adjust. They play games, old school games, where they're actually used to a DM that makes combat easier early on. As old school, a lot of old school guys did this. A lot of guys actually tried to adjust to this whole combat thing, but they wouldn't do the one thing basic I said, which is, and it's add a few more hit points, and you don't need to be a WotC. You don't need feats. You don't need nothing. Think about it. And I said this on a old school D&D forum where it was add a few hit points, guys. And you don't need to you keep most of your game. A few more hit points makes early combat more manageable, more survivable, a better chance of succeeding, doesn't create superhero characters, doesn't overkill, makes it that you don't need feats, you don't need to change the entire game. Right? Like it would have adjusted the game to a place where a lot of players want the game to be without killing it. You do not need to do WotC with a few more hit points. And I told the guys who all crucified me on that forum for saying that, because it was one of my it sticks out in my head. I don't remember everything, every detail of my life on here talking about the games, but that one sticks out to me because I had a lot of heat come my way from old school guys. And I said to them, the reason I remember this so well is because I told them, I said, if we don't do it, somebody's going to do something like this sooner or later. But even worse. I said, even worse. I said, it's going to get worse. And the reason I sort of instinctively had a feeling that could happen is, unlike the guy who's part of that 10% at home, who has the same group of players, who has no pressure, none of this pressure on them, doesn't even know it exists. I'm like, they're ignorant. And not in a bad way. It's not like I'm saying ignorance like they're stupid. They're just ignorant about the reality outside of their home, outside of their bubble. I'm like 90+% of players, almost all of them outside of this, want combat, right? They want combat on the regular, and they especially want it early. There's no way. When WotC said when I finally learned that Wizards of the Coast, the card game group taking it over, I said to a friend, I said, he said they're making third edition because we finally heard about this, and he said it, and then ironically, they must have already been doing it because like a few weeks later the books came out. I said, "Oh no, dude! There's actually a group that bought it." He's like, "Yeah, there's a group that bought D&D, bought like TSR." It's like, that's not good. He said, "Why?" I said, "It's going to be a different game." He said, "Why do you think it's going to be a different game? Combat's going to be easier. It's going to break what we know about the game." I knew it before third edition even came out. When it came out a few weeks later, when the books finally hit the thing, right away, I talked to a few guys after having it for a few days. They did. They said, "Dude, you were completely right. Feats, combat's easier. And there's a lot more action. It's going to take longer to complete fights." They knew this before they even played a session. I knew it right away. I said, because the reason I sort of had an instinctive feeling that this was going to happen is because, unlike the guy at home who's in a bubble, who plays with the same group for decades, I'm out as a public DM dealing with over 90% of players. And I'm like, Dude, I know how people are, the vast majority. I know exactly how they are, right? They are going to want to do combat. And that's why a lot of games, when I do criticism about games, like I ran a lot of old school games. And later in life here, I've been doing streams on them. But I do a little bit of research before I go to the stream. And one of the things I'm researching is criticism about the game. And one of the common criticisms about the old school games, because combat's always hard to them, it's the combat. It's you'll see it flash. I mean, the majority of guys, I don't like this game. This is why all the games outside of D&D, they also fail. Traveler, I personally love it. Most people didn't like it. Why do most people not like it? Not because of the gameplay. It's the, well, not because of the overall stuff, like the getting out and playing the sort of sandboxy bit. It's the combat. Combat's quick, over, diddly. They don't like it. But almost any game that was closer to having lasting combat was more successful than most other games. Why is that? So every old school game that you look at, the more popular ones are ones where combat lasts just a bit longer. Just a bit longer. So I'm like, you can go check this out if you don't believe me. All right, World of Darkness, a little better because combat lasted a little bit longer. Some Palladium games, a Heroes Unlimited, a little better because combat wasn't just over in a fucking heartbeat. And very few games outside of like Call of Cthulhu, most of them failed. Why did most games fail? Combat's no good. People don't care about the story. So 90+% of people don't care about story. Sorry to say to the story guys out there, they're a minority too. Most people like Pendragon, great storytelling game, an actual storytelling tabletop role playing game. Most people don't like it. What's the major complaint? Yeah, combat sucks. I mean, this is the vast majority of customers. Savage Worlds. Why do you think Savage Worlds is so successful? Why do you think that rule set is successful? Combat lasts a little bit longer. It's more exciting. That's it. That's 100% it. And it's initially you're stronger from the get-go. Like combat's a real thing. That's something you feel like you could do. So what happens? Most people in the hobby like it. And I mean, at least the people that are trying it, they go, oh, that's not bad. But it's like, why? Is there all these other aspects about Savage Worlds that makes most people like it? No, combat. The combat tabletop role-playing games, I hate to say it to most people in the hobby look at it for combat. It's not what we want to hear. I love character development. I love some aspects from drama class and storytelling. We have these minor debates over the story thing. Like, so it's storytelling, story merges. Yeah, well, there's what? Millions of people in the hobby. Go look at the guys doing content on the story stuff. Almost no reaction. Almost none. Not compared to the audience, like the actual active audience online, especially. Like in the old school, for example, who talks a lot about storytelling, we have over 7 million people that do purchasing and are active online. Most of them do not watch content creators. They do not react to storytelling, nothing. They don't care about story. They don't even care about story emerging. And I'm talking about the silent people because the loud people are always, oh my fuck. Sorry about that. But it's a silent. The silent majority is always silent on certain things, but there's a reason because most of them don't care. They don't care about story. They don't care about, I mean, just about anything. Like they don't care about the grind of the game. And so when you look at WotC, it makes more sense in a way why they lean towards video gameplay, combat, and less caring on you creating the story than maybe just giving you something that seems like a story for you to play. Baldur's Gate is not you telling a story. It's you're playing in a story already developed for you, told before you even started the game. That's what a lot of the new gaming stuff is. Third party adventures are just stories already told, already created. You're just going to play your part in the story already formatted for you. You are not telling anything. That's, you realize most people, and I'm like a lot of people, Bill. This is why I have these weird debates with people, because a lot of people that are online, the loudest voices are always part of the minority. Some of the loudest voices in the old school are part of the less than 10% of people that played at home. I'm like, that's why out of the 7+ million purchasing people we have in the old school, almost none of them pay attention to you because they don't relate with you. Like, most of them don't relate with you. That's why they're not watching your content. Most of them don't relate with your arguments. That's why they're not. Feels like jump players around 3 levels feel. It can. That's not always the case, but I mean, it pumps you up faster than it should. So there's a lot of nuance there, but at the same time, it's just some areas of the game are almost better at standstill. So does it always just on the easy jump you up 3 levels? No. I mean, look, sometimes it's not even just the feats and the levels of the characters. It's the gameplay that becomes easier. Like the gameplay overall for 3rd edition. Most people forget this. The characters and stats aren't always extremely different from old school characters, right? But the different types of actions and reactions can make combat easier on you. So it's not just in the way the characters grind up, because sometimes they're not superheroes, but in a game like 3rd edition, with the way the actions play out, they can seem like that. It's a lot easier to overcome the goblin to a degree, and the way the action actually plays out. I noticed this with 5e too. It's, in old school D&D, if the goblin is weak, it's because the goblins are weak. It's not because the goblin is weak or strong or whatever for combat, because the game part of it is secondary to that, right? And again, 3rd edition leans more into the wargaming mindset than any old school edition there is. Like in a wargaming mindset, the mechanical use of the goblin would be more important than the realism of the goblin. See, in old school D&D, goblins are weak because, say, if you're going to say they're weak, or kobolds are weak because they're seen as that's a good representation of who they are. And when the D&D guys are putting them together, they're not caring how the kobold plays out in battle as much as the kobold is represented correctly in the stats to match the reality of what the kobold is. In third edition goes back to a more wargaming mindset of let's worry about the mechanics and how they function for play. So, like, miniature use becomes regular in 3rd edition. WotC. Wargaming mindset, like the video game aspect of 3rd edition, is more war game than any old school D&D edition there is. Again, this is another reason why old school D&D was rejected by wargamers. Right? The wargamers are playing on a board. The function of how that works, the stats, the maneuvers, is important to wargamers. That was not important to the Dungeons and Dragons game. Reality was. So the kobold is more like what they picture the kobold to be. The kobold's not made for the gaming aspect of the game. Kobolds for 3rd edition are more war game. Goblins are more war game. The gameplay is more war game, but that means there's more advantages to you in that war gaming aspect and actions. So sometimes it's not that the 3rd edition character is just all that, like, stronger, right? Okay. This doesn't take long. That was quick. Problem solved. People give themselves away too quickly. And Black Rose, it's at least it's not the witching hour, but this time it's like early on Novscript. At least it's not during the D&D streams, which let's talk about that for a second, guys. Because I know you guys want to know a bit about that. So I got a couple weeks here. Tonight, just freehand, so I'm all over the place. Sorry about if I seem a little flaky tonight. Let's go over the games, or the stuff I am going to cover. So tomorrow I'm going to be covering in a more organized way 2 Mahors, right? And then on Thursday, on the 6th, I'm going to be covering Dungeoneer Survival Guide, Wilderness Survival Guide, and the Manual of Planes. On Friday, I'm going to be this whole old school D&D. I'm going to be covering old school essentials and some general stuff about the OSR. Next week, this is for the D&D coverage. Now, on the weekend, on this Saturday, on the 8th, I'm going to be covering Marvel Superheroes, the tabletop role-playing game, right? That's going to be fun. And then, of course, every Tuesday is off script. But next week is my second week of special D&D coverage. And on the 12th, I'm going to be covering Lakmar. And then I'm going to be on Thursday, on the 13th, I'm going to be doing another look at original Dungeons & Dragons and Me. Bill, you'll appreciate this. A second look, a part 2 to my OD&D and Me coverage. I already have a stream on those, covering the background on them, but we're going to do more. And then to finish off my 2 weeks of special focus on D&D, I'm going to be covering deities and demigods. It's going to be good. And then next Saturday, the Saturday after Marvel Superheroes on the 15th, I'm going to be covering the Morrow Project. That is really, really fun. Now, on the members only stream, the first one, and I'm almost complete this Black Rose. I'm surprised I've learned more about lore about Warhammer than any other time in my life. But I am going to be doing the first members only stream of August, which is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And then on the 21st, I'm going to be on that Thursday. This is the last month I'm going to be doing Thursday, so appreciate it. I'm going to be doing Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition. And that Saturday on the 22nd, I'm going to be covering Immortals: The Invisible War, a different tabletop role-playing game. Then on the second members only of August, the second and last one, I'm going to be covering Most Guard role-playing game. It's going to be good. The last Thursday of August, on the 28th, I'm going to be covering Basic Fantasy RPG. And the last stream of the month is going to be a game. It's going to be on the 29th. It's going to be Over the Edge. Oh, it is the witching hour. Okay, never mind. You're right. Just over an hour. I wasn't sure about that guy. He seemed a little flaky last time. I didn't know he was going to end up going weird on me. But the coverage for August is going to be fucking awesome. It's going to be fucking awesome. It'll be good. So yeah, it's a 2-week special I'm doing on D&D. A very deep focus on Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of 1E coverage there. Yeah, I wish sometimes went completely apeshit. Sometimes I wish the guys had a better relationship with me for old school D&D, because I love some of them to be part of the conversation, because I have a lot to say on that stuff and I'm really well informed and I got my shit together on it. So it's a shame, but it is what it is. At least I get you guys around. I know Bill will appreciate it. I know someone else that's on X. I look forward to him being around if he can be. A guy I interact with quite often. I don't want to stick his name. Oh, let me see. But I found out recently because I was going to cover the third edition stuff, and I'm like, I found out, oh, he's a big fan of the third edition stuff, which is really, really. Oh, Gary D20 Games. On XO, Gary, if you're out there, see this later. Let me say when. August the 21st is the second last Thursday. I'm going to be covering third edition Dungeons and Dragons, which I know is something he really, really does like. Yeah, you can't save the world. Haters are going to always hate me. It's a disappointing thing because it just leads to them getting blocked for life, and then they get cut off, and then other people get cut off over it. It's like it makes communicating impossible. But I'm gonna have a couple of weeks of some really hardcore D&D coverage here, starting tomorrow till Friday, and then next week it's going to be starting on a Wednesday till Friday. And these it's coverage I was going to do like sort of spread out. But yeah. And then here's what's funny. I might be able to do a few more in September if I can, because my work will slow down and then pick up full time after that. So by the time October hits, that's it. I'm full time. But I might be able to actually get another D&D week in sometime in September, right? I hope I can. It'd be nice to. Just because a lot of stuff I want to look back at. Going back over the OD&D and Beckme stuff means I can dig into some of the stuff. Remember I said Black Rose, I told you a while ago. Whenever I do these streams, I purposely don't cover everything because I want to be able to go back and do like a part 2 to a lot of these subjects, right? And so when I hear guys say, well, he didn't cover this, that means, oh, he failed. He doesn't know anything about that. Dude, I'm purposely not covering that extra stuff. It's like Cyberpunk. There's a lot of things about Cyberpunk I purposely skip because, I want to get a bit of game experience, but I want to do a lot more reading, and I want to be able to, there's so much extra material that I can cover Cyberpunk again and talk, especially Cyberpunk 2020, right? I want to be able to talk about that again. I want to be able to talk about that period and talk about some of the extra books that came along with Cyberpunk. So, I did my initial boom, but I want to do a part 2, and this is to extend out the content, like, because I want to have it like, the content in my head is meant to be spread out for years. Like people don't understand. Last year, I decided halfway through the year I'd start streaming in 2026. And so people don't know I've been playing the long game in my head for a long time. They don't know I started playing with the streaming thing almost a year before I started doing it, right? And so I started writing all these little script things down, rundowns for them. And I worked on that privately without people realizing. I never told anyone. I start the streams in 2026 and I have all these runs down all ready to go, but it's the reason I've been working on it for a year. But I had a eureka moment, a sort of 2-day brainstorm where I said, okay, what do I want to do on YouTube as far as content and tabletop role-playing game content for years to come? Like, I just don't want to have to go through week after week trying to figure out what I want to talk about. I didn't want to be flaky and not even sure where I'd be in a year or 2 years. And I came up with this whole concept in my head of, look, I played 50 games, played and ran 50 games, so I definitely want to cover them. I need to get in touch, and so last year, I purposely started getting in touch with game masters I know, right? Like, so doing Burning Wheel with Sam OG is going to be a big benefit. Didn't even see that one coming in, so I get to cover Burning Wheel at one point properly. But I started getting in touch with guys, I think around like June last year. I said, okay, I'm doing all these rundown things, but I'm going to need to be able to cover games that I haven't touched before. And so I started planning out with all these guys to run me 2 or 3 sessions on all these different games. And so like the guy who did Warhammer, he's done 4 other games for me before Warhammer that you guys don't know about. And I personally did 5e, like ran it, but I did play a little bit of 3e. I just didn't want to talk about certain things. So I've been keeping a lot of things private. But I started getting in touch with DMs, game masters, guys who did all this stuff, and just said, here's my project going forward. We've gamed together before. I'm not asking you to go to your way, but if you get time, could you run me through 2 or 3 sessions, right? And so I'd be able to claim that I played it, talk to you guys and get some information and be able to do these streams on these games going forward. And a bunch of guys just because I have a really good relationship with them in person and ran games for them in years past. They said, yeah, for sure. Don't mind helping you at all. And they know I have a passion for the hobby. So they were like, they understand that it's more important than just making money to me. I'm going to sort of put this stuff together so it's here and reminds designers about this stuff. And they agree with some of my principles. Like, yeah, a lot of these games have gotten ignored. And then even for me just to be able to talk on certain factual stuff, I said, I got to know some stuff. So that's when we started doing all this. So what you guys don't know is, but I'm sort of letting it out a little bit out of the bag every so often, which is last year I came up with this idea for like the next, I'd say 3 to 5 years worth of content. So I'm very confident and I can just, right now I have so much content I can do that it sometimes makes it hard for me to decide what to do. I'll be like, so what should I do in August? And I have all these like scripts made and I'm like looking through them, which one, and then trying to get them in the right order. I sometimes like I said, should I just do properly year after year? And I realized no, that probably wouldn't be good. Do themes every so often, and then I go from there. But there you go. But yeah, I do wish I had a better relationship with some of the guys from the D&D world because I love to talk about Tomb of Horrors with them. I love to talk about the Dungeon Survival Guide, the the Wilderness, and the Manual Planes. Uh, I'm not going to do it this run, but the battle system in the Greyhawk Wars. I was going to do it this month. I'm probably going to do it in September instead. But that has to do with a little bit of war gaming brought to D&D later. Just to show guys that I'm honest. I don't like, because I know how cheap and two-faced people can be about the hobby. It's just because I know it was something that came in later doesn't mean, oh, it is this. But I decided that I do, because I have a whole second look, like a second part I'm doing on OD&D and Beckme. Now I want to look at that stuff. I want to dig more into it. Uh, focus on some of the gaming around that, like maybe a little bit more diving into some of the Mystera stuff too on that night, because Beckme really, Mystera is in many ways, uh, even though I still think the best of the settings. It was birthed through Beckme. I mean, you just can't get around that. Like, and Beckme is, in my opinion, there's parts of Beckme I think are better than AD&D 1E. Uh-oh, that's going to get me in trouble with some people. No, it's some others, like Bill. Bill will probably appreciate that statement. But I actually think Beckme is better than AD&D 1E. Uh-oh. And I played a lot of Beckme. Like, people don't know that part. But as a player, I ran second edition, but I played a lot of Beckme. And as a player, I like Beckme. Put it this way, Beckme kept me around. Because after like 5 years of playing, I almost quit 5 years. And then a buddy of mine said, well, you can't quit now. I'm going to run a Beckme campaign. I said, okay, well, if it's Beckme, I'll play. And he ran it in Mystera, which is my favorite setting. That kept me around. For So I actually think Beckme is better than AD&D 1E. Way better. People are like, well, but AD&D 1E comes later than Beckme, doesn't that mean it's like evolved? No. Bullshit. I think Beckme is way better than AD&D 1E. Beckme is fucking beautiful and awesome. Beckme is awesome. I prefer second edition as a DM. AD&D. I prefer that as a DM. As a DM, I prefer that. Dealing with the public is better for me with that game. Personally, I mastered that game. But as a player, if you were to ask me as a player of D&D games, I would play Beckme probably even before 2E. Uh-oh. So I like Beck Me better, and Mystera is a birth of that because Beck Me to me is it produces better than AD&D 1E. And production matters to me. Like what it produces and mindset and approach. That's very important. Sometimes it's not always obvious why something happens or why something was produced from something. Um, but you're automatically more cautious in Beck Me. See, Beck Me, even with the public people, I find most people just cautiously play Beck Me. Like in AD&D 1E, a lot of people go for combat. In second edition, sadly, a lot of people go for combat, right? When you're going to run Beck Me with most people, they're just cautious. I don't know what it is, but people are more naturally cautious with combat with Beck Me right away. So, do I think Beck Me is better than 2E? I don't want to argue that. I don't think that's the case. I actually prefer overall 2E. I think 2E is the best TSR edition there is. Overall. But on personal outcome, I've had a better experience with Beck Me. That as a player, not as a DM. Not as a DM. I would not even half interested in DMing Beck Me. Nothing against Bill. Bill, you can enjoy it. Beck Me would put me to sleep. I'd rather 2E Mystera. I'd rather run 2E and run it. But I can't do the Beck Me thing. But I know the guys who do run Beck Me are always guys that I prefer. And I'm very picky about the DMs I run into. So there. Beck Me produces some okay DMs. There you go. There you go. But AD&D 1E is one game that for many reasons to this day just turns me off. Like I ran AD&D 1E. I played AD&D 1E. I don't like the production. I don't like the people surrounding it. That's what turned me off. I found more reasonable people around Beck Me, and then got turned on to 2E. I love with a passion, same here. The only other system that can rival but not surpass is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I enjoyed it. I don't want to say too much. Oh my fuck. I don't want to say too much. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for the bit of time I played. I'm glad I wouldn't sit down through a campaign with it, but look, I haven't played serious, and I still don't understand. These are like 2 or 3 session runs, so I have to admit I've enjoyed a lot of experiences because of these purposely short runs right with them. Uh, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good for what it was, and I don't know if I'd ever play a campaign with it, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed it for what it was. Uh, I hear you. My only gimmick with Warhammer is this with the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I'll say this: I love MOBA, but I enjoyed most systems. Well, Bill, you hit the nail on the head. Get the right DM, they can make AD&D 1E better. Get the right DM shit, you can make any system good with a good game master. That's just all be honest. I think Bill, even you would agree with that. I could pick out just about any game on the fucking board. Outside of certain gameplay aspects, like look, the only thing that would kill me with new school D&D wouldn't be a good DM. They could probably run certain things well, but it'd be the length of combat that I would not like. He'd have to host roll the shit out of that and fix it. But I mean, a good GM. I get a lot of credit from games I know guys don't like. They won't like certain games. They'll be like, man, I would never play that game. I remember the Ghostbusters game was because a guy played it twice before me. He said, yeah, man, it sucked. I said, well, I said, I'm running it right now. You want to play? He said, I'd rather to your next game. I'm like, well, I'm running this one for a while, dude. You want to play? And he thought about it for like 2 hours. Finally comes back to me and calls. He said, okay, I'll come down tonight and play. I said, all right. Came down and played. He begged me to run it more after so many sessions. That was begging me straight out. He's like, you're fucking awesome, dude. I didn't think it'd be any good. I was like, Not trying to brag, Bill, but it's like that is the big difference. You get the right guy running anything, it's good. But I I'm like you. I can enjoy most systems outside of WotC D&D. It's the length of combat. It really is. It kills me. Like it's just a common fight. Like I'm too accustomed to the 15-20 minute fight in old school D&D. When that common fight becomes 2 hours, I'm out. I'm out. That killed me with 5e. It was so slow. I like talk about prep. I remember when I ran 5e last year. Hate to get all over the place, but I prepped tons. I had so much prep. Other than so, and the guys actually agreed. I was running 8-hour sessions with 5e people, and I'd be like, okay, I got tons prepped, tons ready to go, man. We can do a lot tonight. Get into it. Okay, get so far. Finally, after like the first session wasn't bad. I mean, the first session was almost like 3.5 hours of just some good role play and good stuff doing. And then I won't tell you a long story, but we get to a fight, and I'm like, okay, this should be like I know how long it's going to take long, but it's supposed to be a small fight. That took an hour and 15 minutes with me pacing it as quick as I could. Even the 5e guys were like, man, you were going fast. And that took almost 2 hours. And that was and they couldn't believe I was the first time DM doing it. Well, I said I prepped myself for it, but like they came like, you're getting the rolls quick. You prepped us before the game for this, so we like the players weren't giving me any trouble. They were ready on their turns. All good practice stuff. Very happy with how even the 5e guys were playing. And that was, they called it me running combat really well. They said like you're running it like a seasoned veteran, like a professional, like someone who really knows their shit. I said, yeah, because I prepped and prepped and prepped for this. Still took an hour and 50 minutes for a small fight. And that's with the dice rolling going quick, actions being made, everything happening, me not delaying on statements, no pausing during the fight at all. An hour and 50 minutes on a small combat scene. I was like, holy fuck, that just ate up that in old school D&D, that's 15-20 minute combat. That just ate up almost 2 hours of game time on one fight. And we're not talking fourth, we're not talking third or fourth, we're talking fifth. Almost 2 hours. Okay, we did a bit of role playing. We go into another fight that's slightly bigger. I run it well again, over 2 hours. There goes your session. Session is 3.5 hours of some good stuff, and then fighting. And the fighting slowed it down. It's just the two little fights. That's it. Our 8-hour session is done. I was like, this is fucking awful. Like that's all I could think to myself. I didn't say anything to the players. I kept it to myself. Next session, the same thing. In old school D&D, in the same amount of time, I could have done 5, 6, 7 combats. A thrilling, threatening, on the edge combat that would have been good in those scenes, would have been great, would have been fun for the players, would have been everything. 2 eats up more than half the session. What the fuck? That was the regular format going forward. It killed our sessions. I'm doing 8 hours plus, and the game is dying. And what we should have got done in 8 hours, we were getting 3 hours worth of gameplay done. And this is what game flow. Players are happy. They're not bored. They're not like fidgety. They're not yawning. They're having a great time. But this is where the 5e guy said, wow, the horrible part of our system is sticking out in ways we like. They said afterwards, they said when I was done, they said, look, we didn't think combat was that bad because that's not the way we were taking it in. But after this, wow, that was awful. That was one of the worst things, because what happened before we did the 5e thing, these guys ran in a short campaign with me, because I did it on purpose, because I wanted to run guys. I was recruiting guys, so they come in through, uh, what game was it? It was a bit of the Deadlands, but it was mostly like 2e. It was Deadlands and 2e. So this is over a few years. So I knew these guys for quite a while. Most of the players were basic. It's deadly. A response. Does it reward murder? Buries them. That's another balancing factor. Completely agree, Bill, on the basic. You're not going to get murder hobos. You're going to die really quick. But yeah, on the 5e thing, I took them through a little bit of 2e and a little bit of Deadlands. That was over a few years of meeting these guys. So they already knew what good combat was with me, like, short run, boom. I finally agree, because these are 5e guys. Okay, guys, I'll do your 5e thing, because I already knew them. I brought them in. These were pure 5e guys, mostly game to side of me with 5e. And even the short runs I did, these were what I sort of call like recruitment games, right? So I brought them in through that, and they tried it, and they had a lot of good time. And then they went in, and we did these. It was killer. It's, yeah, most people, I think, me better communicated the survival side of the game. I think you would agree with that, Bill, right? OD&D did too, but me at least keeps that branding where it's still considered survival. AD&D 1E walks completely away from that. So me was better at communicating design intent. Design intent is survival, right? AD&D 1E makes people think combat, combat, combat. AD&D second edition, it wasn't me. You have to teach it. But there was a more natural side to me, which made you think getting by is it. And a lot more people think of the old game like that, like it's, you don't get all these benefits. So in a way, there's a more, I don't know what it is. There's a secret sauce, but you get what I'm saying, Bill. I don't think I'd be lying to you if I try to put that into words and say I totally understand why people take that in better. I'd be lying to you. This would be deceitful of me, and it's so I'm going to try to explain something that I don't have a perfect explanation for. I don't have a solid one. There's a secret sauce somewhere in Me and OD&D that is better with the old survival presentation than AD&D 1E. AD&D 1E starts getting away from that and leaning into combat, but in a way that the game shouldn't. Like, it's just a lack of, it's not good communication. It's even to the point it's not even well communicated to the DM. But it's not that so much communicated so much in Me. I would say the simple thing is just through the way you do the game, it quietly communicates that game part of the game to you better. That's the way I'll put it. There, it's like second edition produces, Bill, this is my opinion, produces not the best DMs, but OD&D 30% of DMs produces are good, like good, that it produces. Me, 30% of the DMs it produces are good DMs. Some good, some great. AD&D 1E, I'll give it, produces probably 20 to 30% of really good DMs. AD&D second edition produces 80 to 90% good DMs. And there's no TSR edition, not even Me, that touches what AD&D second edition produces in Dungeon Masters. The quality it produces, when I say produces, means 30% in OD&D Me and AD&D 1E are just going to be good, where you could probably have 70 or 80% be good, but for whatever reason, those systems are not going to develop those guys towards that type of thinking, like a certain amount of guys, right? There's going to be 30%. It gets worse with with WotC, because WotC only produces like maybe 10% of good DMs and has most of their guys leave, not dedicate themselves to the actual game. So it's not burnout. Guys just leave WotC. WotC editions all have this issue. But 30% is usually pretty average. OD&D, BECME, even AD&D 1E. When you get the second edition, man, and every guy I've talked to that's honest, dead honest, and really played up the second edition and seen how many good guys produced, for whatever reason, there's a secret sauce in 2E that seems to produce, or even take guys that are okay and make them better. And it produces so many good DMs that it's silly. And there's no edition before second edition that's done this, and no edition since. Right? It's a secret sauce. I wish we figured out, because I don't get it. The Dungeon Master Guide for AD&D 1E is Gary himself, right? Talking to you. Well, just because you have the guy telling you good stuff doesn't mean everyone's just going to take it and run it good. There is something that happens with 2E. There is a secret sauce in there with 2E that just gets guys on the right fucking program, right? And they run it well. And you could take 2E DMs and they can run BECME well. They can run 1E AD&D well. They can run OD&D well. And I've had guys with the BECME games go, even experienced DMs from BECME go, yeah, you're a 2E DM. These are old school guys that are honest. They know right away they can bring in a guy and run a game for even BECME from 2E, because 2E produces a lot of guys. It does definitely takes time, but it's just getting people on the right path. And then here's another thing I think you'd appreciate, Bill. 2E also has the longest shelf life for DMs, because and maybe part of that is because TSR goes out of business, but you got to think it starts in like 1987 officially, but by 1989 you start getting 2E DMs. Live playing kept going right up until, like, actively 2016. There were still groups in there where half the DMs were 2E and half the campaigns were 2E. Yep. Oh yeah, that can happen. Different approaches. It helps to run other games. I think you would agree with that, Bill, because you're a guy who's done Bunnies and Burrows and some other things. Bunnies and Burrows is a great game to run as a DM and then go back to D&D. Because what happens with these other games? That's why I like running Gangbusters, Bunnies and Burrows, Top Secret, Bushido, is you're forced to go look at a different aspect of the game. So Bunnies and Burrows is a lot less combat, even though there's combat in there. It's a lot less combat. You got to do this negotiation. You got to do a lot more role play. But as a DM, you'll learn that. And the quality you learn from that game is something you can apply to D&D. When you go to Top Secret, the mission, putting together missions for your players, it's really well organized and really creates teamwork in a way that D&D doesn't directly do. But you learn that you can take that back in missions. You can develop missions that are a lot better. Gangbusters helps you react better with the world to what players do. Really makes you focus on it. Again, this is an aspect. This is why I like D&D being generic. Played more games. I've learned a lot of the other games, but it really teaches you shit, because it's like D&D isn't going to teach you this stuff, but D&D is so generic, you can apply it. So once you learn the fun of reacting with the world with Gangbusters, you can take that back and better react with the world to your players. Bushido, even though it steals off an early TSR game, that the Pedal Throne, it does steal from that. Bushido's a lot, but it's Eastern Japanese. The way the rules work for socializing is so unique and cool that you can take aspects of that back to D&D. That's what's great about D&D, especially old school, like BECME. It's so generic. There's nothing in the rules or nothing in the game that says you can't add this layer on top and the game still works. Like it doesn't get in the way of the rules. It's just an aspect, right? Oh. But that's why I love generic D&D. A lot of people don't get that. I love generic D&D because generic D&D is a great game where I've always advised people to go play other games, and they're like, "Well, why?" I mean, it's not like it makes. It's not like I prefer to play Top Secret over D&D. That wouldn't be what I tell somebody. But there's because D&D is so generic, other games have aspects, and they force you to focus on them. D&D is going to let you do its same gimmick, right? So a lot of times you're not going to worry about how the world reacts. You're not going to worry about all these aspects. But these other games are purposely more limited, but focused on certain things. And when you go try them, you're going to find out these other things actually have qualities, things that get ignored in D&D. But what you find out is these same things you can bring back to D&D, and suddenly you're reacting better with the world. It's like Traveler and OD&D had Sandbox, and I came in 1987, right? So I entered the hobby in 1987. I started reading some of the modules, and I had started learning the redefined version of Sandbox. And I was like, boom. I said, so this is Sandbox. And some old guy who started in 1974 started laughing at me. He's like, Steven, that's not Sandbox. I'm like, dude, it says Sandbox. And I'm talking about a module. He's like, that's not how we did it with OD&D and Beckme. He's some old goop man. Just the old fucking drunk. He'd get drunk at his games all the time, but the guys didn't care. He was a good player. He'd still fucking be. He's a guy who could function and drink, but he's fucking old. Old. I couldn't believe he even started at 74, but he did some more gaming. The guy, when I get into it, he's like a 55, and this is an 87, mind you. He's 55 and 87, been around wargaming, been around D&D. He's laughing at me being like this, like, I just turned 8, and it's not like I'm like some little kid, like 8 years old. I was still competent in talking. I could talk really well. I was saying I'm learning about sandboxing, and he starts laughing at me. He's like, that's not sandboxing. That's not what we did. I was like, well, what do you mean that's not what you did? He's like, he goes, I play original. It's like, yeah, I know. He's like, that's not how we do sandboxing. I was like, well, how the fuck do you do sandboxing? He's like, he goes, Steven, you ever heard of a game called Traveler? I said, no. He says, your DM has it at home. Why don't you go get it, read it, learn about sandboxing? I said, is that sandboxing you're talking? He's like, yeah, that's what we did with Beckme and OD&D. And he just say Beckme. He said basic. I'm using Beckme as just a common phrase now. But he said basic. He used word basic. It's like that's. So I said okay, and I borrowed Traveler off my DM, and I printed it. Went through the whole process of printing. Print is always a pain in the ass, but I did it. And I go back and I start reading Traveler and learning about the sandbox that Traveler does. And what I'm being told by this old guy is that sandbox with Traveler is what they did with original Dungeons and Dragons. He's like, that's real sandbox. It's like, okay, so I learned. So by 91, after learning about the sandbox, I decided I want to try it. I want to try it with the second edition AD&D, which is new books I had, but still not new to me, hand-me-down. So guy had already bought the books and decided to go back to AD&D 1E, gave me the 2E books. Whatever. I got them, right? Oh, yeah. But I said, okay, I learned through Traveler what Sandbox was that he was talking about. And I said, okay. And I went and applied it to second edition, and I found it worked like fucking magic. Like the Sandbox he taught me, Bill, is what built Mystera. Without the Sandbox he told me about, Mystera doesn't even exist. You can't get Mystera with a real sandbox. You can't get the module sandbox. Like if you learn sandboxing through Temple of Elemental Evil, there is no Mystera. If Mystera doesn't exist before that, and that's all you know, no Mystera. Mystera is pure sandbox created, developed. Pure, 100%. But what I didn't know was TSR didn't want us to know about real sandbox gaming, because What I didn't know, and this is what the old guy was telling me, is like, we used to do this, is TSR looked at real sandbox gaming as a threat to their new money-making gimmick modules. Remember, TSR, when it first starts, makes multiple games. Top Secret, Game Busters, and this is to make more money. Well, at one point, they stopped making games because they figured something out by accident, that these pre-made adventures they were making a lot of money. A lot of people wanted to purchase them. So instead of making new games, they start making sandboxing towards, say, Mysteria. They find out Mysteria is liked. They start making, like Greyhawk is liked for the original game, the setting. So they start making settings. They start making modules in replacing games. What happens is sandbox that Traveller is doing is a threat to that model. Because if you find out that your adventures are more fun, that sandboxing is actually more fun and more active for a DM and more fun, and they really are, than any module. Sandboxing is always more fun than a module. If you find that out, that's going to destroy their new module money grab gimmick. And so they really did redefine the original sandbox as we know it into their modules. They call what they're doing is sandboxing. So to teach you a new form of sandboxing so they can take over the term and take your mind away from this gimmick. Right. And I didn't know they redefined it. So when I came in 87, I got lucky because if I did not run into this guy, Bill, I'm fucked. No, but some freedom with an end that's a loose railroad. I'm not insulting you, Bill, but I'm just telling you what it really is. That's a loose railroad. Sandbox is complete freedom. Like, you're talking about the redefined sandbox. That's not what sandbox is. I'm not trying to insult you, Bill. I'm just trying to be absolutely real with you. That's a loose railroad. That's what we call it. And there's nothing wrong with them. Temple of Elemental Evil is a railroad. Pure. It's a loose railroad. I mean, sometimes a railroad goes this way, direct to the end, right? A loose railroad is like, but there's an end. A sandbox is something where the players decide the path and even the ending. That's why a sandbox campaign can go on for 20 years. A sandbox campaign can go on forever because there is no defined end. The second you put an end on the thing, it's a railroad because there is an end point you're trying to get to. You can either go straight to it or do loops around, but it's a railroad. Temple of Elemental Evil is a railroad. When they use sandbox in there, that's a redefined thing, but sandbox actually just means pure freedom with no defined ending. And I know you think sandbox, but that's a structure of, oh no, I hear you. But when they say sandbox, it doesn't mean that's the box you might think walls. We're talking about the game. The game is the structure you're playing it in. That's the game is the structure, not the actual adventure. And I get what you're saying. I think there's nothing wrong with Beat 10 Nights and Bill, I'll even say this. I like Temple of Elemental Evil. I didn't mind the Tomb of Horrors. I think there's nothing wrong with some of the modules and even some of the concepts of freedom they give you. None of the details you're saying is wrong. Your description is not wrong. We don't disagree. I think, again, sometimes it is semantics, as we would say, or sometimes language, but we agree more here than we disagree. I promise you, Bill. And I get that it was fun. 1,000,000% believe you. 1,000,000% believe you. But the reason I find the detailed language becomes important is it's just because there is a lie in the mix, right? And so vaguely saying stuff sometimes can harm the overall conversation, especially like if you want to make a point. Like, to me, sandbox should be just considered what it purely was, right? Like, that's why I think accurate language here to call it a loose railroad. I don't say that to insult somebody. I just say that's boom, unlimited opportunity, totally. Elemental Evil has a lot of unlimited stuff too, right? I would totally give it the same thing. Yep. There's a lot of freedom. I'd still use the term freedom. I'm with you. You're talking about freedom. Hex crawling. Now you're talking about hex crawling. I should do a stream on that, like a more accurate stream, not a vague one. It's going to sound weird, and this is not a hit on people that do hex crawls. I don't like them. And people like ask me why. It's not about, here's why. Everybody I know that's done hex crawl makes changes as they do the rolls. That's no good. I'll do this. I'm like, well, dude, how about you just decide? So what I mean is I could take I don't mind the function of hex crawls, but at the same time, whenever I'm doing adventuring, I sort of like deciding the next thing. I think long adventuring is fun too. Don't get it wrong. I love long travels through woods, through this. I can do it all. The goals of hex crawling, I can do without calling it hex crawls or without doing the thing. Randomness, I don't mind it helping me out, but I just don't need it. Some people need it, maybe. I don't know. It's an up and down thing, Bill. There's an up and down thing for me. I like the concept. I like the concept of what it's trying to aim for, but I think you can actually do it without the gimmick. I think you just do it naturally. Like when I say it takes 3 months to get here, I can create, and the reason is there's a lot of games outside of D&D where you actually got to do that. Like this, I forget the name of it now. Hate when I forget the names of certain things. But anyway, they can be long journeys on purpose, and you got to make each step a certain thing. But it's like trying to build a hex crawl thing in your mind completely raw. I can personally do that, so I like complete control. And I'm random enough in my own mind. So when it's only later in life that people start saying to me, "Why don't you do hex crawl?" I'm like, I don't have to. Well, your game must be boring. I'm like, no, dude, you misunderstand. I'm doing it, but I don't need the system. And guys who play my game and get right away, they go through like adventure and they're like, okay, dude, yeah, I get you now. Because they realize they're doing very similar things. But at no point am I doing the system of hex crawl. Like I'm just making it up as we go, right? Like not making it up, but I'm pre-planning as we go. Hex crawling can be good for sandbox stuff, but I guess it depends on the person. Here's my thing, Bill. I have this thing where it's like I'm old school in a way that would piss off some guys. I actually think the hobby is made for a small amount of people. And I hate the idea of making tools that make it easier for people. But now, don't get it wrong. I think for the hobby to be bigger, you can't listen to me. You have to ignore me. But if it was up to me, the hobby would be small. And not because I don't want more people in. It's because only so many people are good at this. I think that's the plain truth. Only so many people are actually good at this hobby. Very few are naturally made for this hobby. I think I look at the tabletop role-playing game hobby as what should have been a very small group of people. Yep, this is it. If I say something and the book says something different, the book is wrong. That's 100% it. And why do I say that? Because go back to Gary Gygax's statement. The DM is king, not the book. Like the DM is king. And if I'm king, the book cannot overrule me. Right? So what does that mean? What would that have to mean? Why do you think I say it? If I say something and the book says something different, the book is wrong. That's it. Now, it's up to me to keep you coming back. That's my job. And if you don't come back, it's because I'm failing. And that's all right. And to me, I remember being old school when I first started. I always thought if you're not good enough to keep your players, you shouldn't be here. Now, there's an alternative. I get on here and I hate how people judge it. People in the old school have lied about me for 7 years, have totally destroyed my reputation through these lies. When I go to recruit for an online game, I have to recruit from a group of people that have heard nothing but lies about me. And I have people that will turn me down because of the lies. That is different. That I'm not being turned down because I suck at game mastering. I'm being turned down because 20 or 30 YouTubers spent 7 years doing streams and videos about me on the constant at certain points, lying about me and destroying my reputation. But they have not, none of them have played the game or could judge me as a bad game master. I don't have a hard time recruiting because of any other reason, right? I got to roll 20. I've had several people talk to me in private now, send me messages. Well, I heard you're a jackass, so I'm not joining your game. I'm just a nerd. I'm no more. Look, I even know the guys that we talk to. Like, I'm no more fucking cranky or whatever the fuck than the guys you're talking. What are you doing? But 90% of the guys that will look my way will refuse me, not because they think I'm a bad game master. It's because of reputation destruction on here that's been done very successfully through having like 20 to 30 YouTubers with influence spend years doing multiple streams of me weekly at certain points and videos, 4 or 5 videos a week for almost 2 years straight, nonstop, right? The destruction, the character assassination on me has been really well documented and well done. So I can't get around that. So some things I'll be judged on. I'll be here, guys out there. I'll be told, well, this YouTuber said you suck because you can't get players. Well, dude, it's not because any of these guys think I suck as a game master. None of them see me or fucking run the game or anything. And note, all the guys that are YouTubers now that actually see my sessions from when I posted 70 of them, and they seen them. I had a period of time before I lost 2 channels where some of the YouTubers around here seen me post over 70 sessions like that went online. They heard them and seen them. None of them criticize those sessions. When I'm attacked, nobody brings them up to use as an attack on me. Why? Because I run a good game. Because I'm a good game master. Of course, that's going to disappoint you if you hate my guts. And then you're going to mention something bad about my game, which is a complete lie. Some of the guys actually have, some of the YouTubers will still go around saying I charge people to play. Never charge anyone to play. They've never seen it. There's no evidence of it. That's still the reputation thing I have. I charge people to play the game. I don't do that at all. But YouTubers are, and they're not just lying in public, Bill. A bunch of them lie in private. So remember, I said I did a video recently saying I ignore a lot of stuff now, but years ago I used to be sent stuff that were private chats from Discord, where I knew who was. I stopped looking at them after a while, but it would be YouTubers, prominent YouTubers, that were in there saying I charge people for like complete lies, just completely made up out of thin air, right? You need 2 cats now. I appreciate that, Bill. I appreciate. Yeah, yeah. It's just true. Just true. A lot of. I wish things were better because I'm a good game master. I really am. Like when I go to recruit, I should be able to fill up a game pretty quickly. I don't like it's not being a bad game master. I'm fucking not to try to brag, but I'm confident. Like, look, I think Bill, it's not about confidence. I think you'd understand what I mean by this. So you'd understand it's not cockiness. You ever do something for so long, so consistently, you know you can just do it well without fucking it up. It's not a brag thing. You just know I'm good at this. Not to brag to people, just when it comes to game mastering, I'm just good at game mastering. It's not a brag thing. I'm just good at it, like a really good. And it's something I want to be able to show off to people. So when they say, "Wow, man, you talk a lot," what do you like? Well, oh, dude, here I am offering a game out in public. All you got to be is don't be sneaky, two-faced piece of shit. Like some guys were trying to join so they could record the session and then put it out in public. I'm like, I'm not scared of you recording a session and putting it out in public. Like, just not at all. Shut up, Black Rose. Too many cats. I don't got that much time in my fucking life. I become Mr. Catman. No, that'd be too much pussy. Pussy's bad for you as it is, right? Uh, but yeah, it is a shame. Like, I guess one guy recently tried to join the game, and he was trying to record it so some very popular YouTubers could put my game out in public. Well, I'm like, I'm not shy about that. That would be that'd be a disappointment for them because all they hear is a decent game being ran. But right away, I'm just like, okay, you got to go. So I kicked that guy to the curb. It's like, how desperate are fucking guys? You're not gonna owe me by recording the game that I run really well. Like, like I put 70 out. I just haven't had a fucking proper group that wants to do public gaming on here online for a while because I haven't tried to recruit. I just have not been running games on here because I've been busy in life, and I got 2 groups in life. So, but I had 70 sessions. Storm Wars. I had the whole thing. Man, they were good. Black Rose, don't make me. I'll tell your wife to get you a pet duck. And you're in Norway, so that's possible. You don't want one of those. If I told you why, you'd laugh. Okay. Been a fuck around stream. That's sort of it. This has not been organized. I came in here just talking shit. I don't plans. I got so much to work on for the D&D stuff. The Tomb of Horrors tomorrow. It's just you guys know I put a lot of pressure on myself just to make sure all that's accurate stuff and right, and get my opinions right, get everything as much as I possibly can, because people put this heat on me so bad here. It's like I get something slightly wrong. Oh, he never played the Tomb of Horrors. He must be lying. He's full of shit. Yet I could watch 10 other YouTubers that they all know talk about Tomb of Horrors, make errors, make complete mistakes. They'll be like, that guy's great. He definitely ran and played Tomb of Horrors. He's fucking bad. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Standard is here for this guy, up here for me. But I actually think that's okay. I think that's good. I like the standard being up here. All right, I'll be at the top of the mountain. You go give other guys top of the molehill standard shit. Rubber chicken would be nice. Jesus fuck. Even having Louie, I have Louie here, and he's a very clean cat. That's one thing. The manager of the place I'm in, the person comes in, they're like, I remember the first day when this new person took over, they were like, "Oh man, so you're like the only person in the building without a pet?" I was like, "I have a cat." He's like, "No, no." He's like, "No way." It's like, "Why?" He's like, "I don't smell it." I take him in, show him where the fucking kitty litter was. He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Man, that's." And then he's seen the cat. I was like, "Yeah, Louie's super clean. I'm super clean." So you're gonna smell the cat at all. The cat won't even exist to you unless I show him to you. And Louie's a very fidgety cat. He's an indoor cat, so he'll go outside with me. I got to take him outside because he won't just go outside. But you can't tell he even lives here. Like I show you guys images of him, but you can't tell. Like if you walked in and you were like, you would not know a cat lived in my home at all. Very, very well taken care of, and he's very clean. Very clean. Small kitten. Does he want or need a friend? I don't know, but he caught where I live. We had to fix the back of my stove thing. I had to get it fixed because they've been blasting a few months ago across the street, blasting this area of forest because they were building a new building. But when they blasted the area, all these field mice like this. So I start putting, mouse traps inside the building. I'm like wondering what they're doing. Why? Oh, one sec. Anyway, these they had all these field mice run from an area after it got blasted, and they had these traps aside. So I'm like, "What is that for?" They're like, "For mice." I'm like, "Okay, all right, whatever." Ignored it. Like these little boxes where the mice can run in, they get trapped. And suddenly one night, about 2 days after the blasting, uh, I can hear Louis going fucking crazy, running across the floors because we have like wooden floors. I was like, "What the fuck is he doing, Gold?" I'm like, dude, but he's right by the stove. Man, I've never seen him by the stove ever, and he's like just glaring at the stove. Like, what the fuck is going on? And then, so I'm like, I don't know what it is, just acting weird. About an hour later, he comes running again. He runs into the bathroom, and as he's running into the bathroom, I look and I just see something in his mouth. Oh, yeah, he caught a mouse. He caught a mouse. Uh, he throws it in, and man, when this thing went the squirm, he bites down on it, lays on his side, and he kicks his legs into this thing. And only like a few moments, like I come in, I open the curtain, there he is kicking it. It squirms, dead. Because Louis, as nice as it, beautiful as he looks, very aggressive little cat. All right, Bill, I love you. Take care, dude. I'm almost done here. I appreciate you stopping by. Uh, yeah, yeah. Remember to back me there next week, and tomorrow is Tomb of Horrors. I'll talk to you soon, my friend. Take care. Have a good night. It's just me and you, Black Rose. That was the story of my cat catching a mouse and killing it. Oh, it must be a pretty boring night. I've been working so hard on some of the D&D stuff and getting the Marvel superhero stuff done, and I've been just doing other stuff in life and working on my game. Right, uh, decided to add a few things onto it, so do some extra work. Been pummeling extra work on me instead of go because I said I want it done by the end of the summer. I could have got something up by the end of July here, but I decided to add a bit more onto the project, and I said, well, as long as I just give myself to the end of August, I can add these extra things, and I should. I don't want to have to add something and then add a little bit later, because this time when I do the update for the Skullhorn edition, I want to put it up, and then honestly, between me and you, I'm not going to be touching it for a while because I'm going to put that up, get rid of all the extra stuff on there, just put that up. That's going to be the new version of the game, and then I'm going to work on Invasion. And once I get Invasion done, when they don't kill, then you have a hole living in your house for a while. Vol. That's totally it. Some cats won't. Some cats won't. We had a cat, Milo, before he passed away. That was his prob. They had field mice come in as well that time, but only two made it in, and this was before we had Louis. And I had to personally catch them with mouse traps and kill them properly. I had to keep Milo out of a certain room because I had to put mouse traps down, and he would have broke his paws on them, right? But I caught both. And he would not kill. Sadly, he'd play with them. He would not kill them. It's like, dude, Milo, and Louis is a small cat. My cat Milo at the time was fucking huge, huge. Play with them. Wasn't scared of them, but wasn't killing them either. Exactly, Zach. But yeah, then once I get Invasion done, uh, guys, because I'm not going to touch Invasion or like once I do the updates for both games, that's it for a while because I'm working on the space version, and I'm also working on a industrial age version with no magic. And I can't keep updating the other two with new stuff. So like while I'm doing that, I can't do it all at once. Too much YouTube work and then the game stuff. It's just too much. So I got to do one project at a time. I'm finishing Skullhorn off. I'll go right into Invasion. I'll finish that off and I'll be happy with what goes up. And then I'm going to be putting up a space version at one point. And the last Neo TTRPG system game that I know I'm working on right now without any other ideas, just I started work on it already, is it's fantasy as far as it's not like real world industrial age, but it is industrial age Victorian romance type of gimmick. And it's going to be no magic, like no spell casting, no magic game, like just a game of maybe some steampunk, maybe some like sort of essence like that, but nothing magic at all. No magic on purpose. So a little bit of cowboy western, a little bit of industrial age, a little bit of Victorian romance. That's sort of going to be the mix. There's concepts like that out there already, but I do have my own ideas for this stuff, and I like the theme, and I like the idea of mixing those three. Right, those three seem like a good mix uh, of ideas. So I'm going to go with them, and I just don't want to use magic that time. The space one could involve clones. No, exactly, Black Rose. That's the thing. I want to make something beautiful here. The space one though will involve clones. Clones. You can play clones. You'll be playing clones. You'll be playing sort of like an original with clones. So that's going to be the gimmick for the player. It's a clone factory type of thing. Space in space. And yes, it's going to be the idea is you can inject yourself into the clone, right? But you only get so many. Like you get so many to work with, so many clones you can work with, and you got to be careful with them. It's not just a overall cloning forever system. There's a limit before the clones. Every other clone you make after that would be so deformed and so non-functional that they don't work. Old Victorian Industrial Age Revolution. Such a cool. It is. The whole concept is fucking hilariously good. Not hilariously, but sort of like funny good. Like it's so fucking good. It's fucking mint, and you don't need magic. I think magic would just be too much, and I like a bit of realism. And I like the idea of getting away from just medieval fantasy. And I got guns. I'm very see. That's the one area of my game that I really feel that is just mint, 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 mint is my gun gameplay. And when you're very confident in gun gameplay, it just leaves you open, like because we're a game where guns can be extreme focus, and downplaying guns is a lot easier than trying to make, say, modern guns to a degree. Like I purposely, when I did Invasion, the setting starts like if like the history of the setting starts in the 90s before everything goes to shit, right? Why did I start in the 90s? Why did I just start in the 90s there? Well, there's so many guns that are from beyond the 90s that are really hard to not just blow up a game with modern guns. Like if you go by how they function, they get crazy. And I like the idea of just stopping the progression at the early 90s of guns and going, okay, that's pretty awesome shit. Instead of worrying about progressing it too much, just to be able to establish those guns still existing, the human race would have to work really hard just to make sure you can establish that, right? I said that'd be a good balancer. It'd be a great way of balancing. When you start hitting guns around, like, especially in the States, when you start hitting guns in the year like 2000, it just gets fucked up. So even the space alien weaponry, because like conservative advance that can get a little crazy, but that can be a bit different too. The space alien stuff, I'm up and down on magic. I don't know if I want to call it magic as much as I want to call it something natural. So in the space alien game, I'm going to do something that you might call magic, but I'll have it where it's a 90s had some really cool guns. I was in the Navy back then, fired I think every weapon in the Norwegian arsenal at the time. Oh, totally. And if you look at the guns for invasion, Philo, you'd be like, okay, Steven gets it. Right. But once you get to a certain point, the guns start getting crazy, like machine gun 50 cals. Like, but I mean like normal like ones where you can have like I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Come on. I can't put that in the game. That would be crazy. And they wouldn't even have the resources anyway for that. So I wanted guns that were what would happen if the world went to apocalypse without like not a nuclear blast, but just say the world for whatever reason, in my long story, ends up breaking into war, boom, and you got to rebuild from nothing. And you're still picking up from the ruins and all that. Resource wise, what would be more reasonable? 90s guns are more reasonable to get to through resources. Some guns are a little bit fucking crazy, but even then, I can balance some of the more powerful 90 guns into being rare, which is then cool, right? No, exactly, Philo. 100% with you. That's it. Game blows up at a certain point. I just don't want that. But space alien stuff, it just could be a bit different. You can assume with new guns, sometimes some things are given up or some things change. Boom. And they do that good with Star Trek and some of the other shows I've seen where it's just different. It's different. And in the difference, you can justify some weird balance. So there you go. But when I seen guns that were like early 2000s in the States, I was just like, fuck, Jesus Christ, man. I wouldn't even bother putting them in the game. They just seem like useless to put in the game. It's real world. I get it, but that's just like toys made by people that are crazy. But yes. So, Philo, if you're going to be here, next month, Philo, Cyberpunk Part 2. Just to let you know, Cyberpunk Part 2. Zag, Cyberpunk Part 2. Both you're here. I sort of hinted at it earlier with Sager. I just didn't know Zag was still around. But Cyberpunk Part 2. I'll be doing another stream focused on Cyberpunk. Oh, Philo, totally. Of course. Yeah, I mean, as long as things can still challenge you, it's not too bad. Yep. And yes, I'll be bringing up what you love is the martial arts system. Thought you'd appreciate that. But yep, Zag. So you guys will hear about 2020. You'll hear about some of the expanded stuff. I remember I told you both I would be doing that on purpose to make sure we'd have another. I just wanted to get down what I was doing, and I had to get a guy. I remember I told you I'd be doing a little bit more Cyberpunk. So at the end of this month, we're going to do Cyberpunk 2023 sessions, and I made him promise that I said Philo and even Zag promoted this gimmick to me, the martial arts, and I know I've read it before, but we got to do it. It's so good. Fucking Philo wants to advance it into Traveler. He's like, yeah, your guy's right. Like, so the guy who's going to run it for me says, you're a fucking 1,000,000% on point. He says, it's way better than the original Cyberpunk. Like the fighting, right? He just said, you're fucking spot on. So I want to talk about that. So in September, guys, we are getting Cyberpunk Part 2. I promise that. That's a guarantee. That's a guarantee. I even got the guy coming down to run it for me, who's going to be here before August is done. He's going to run me through 3 sessions. I told him we have to do the thing. I said I want to do that. So I'm trying to mix some of this stuff into the other stuff I'm doing. But I got the Warhammer thing. It's not going to be a members. Warhammer Fantasy is unique. It's a really attractive piece for different reasons. But I knew you guys wanted to see that, so it won't be a members. Won't be a members. So you can see that freely. Oh, 100%. 100%. It was the in-game. Especially when you think about like UFC becoming a thing and all that. So, I mean, I totally get it. I totally get it. And then there was all those fucking martial arts movies that were fucking hot to trot for a while. Martial arts has always been sort of a, especially on sort of the fantasy side of it, fucking fun, great stuff. But yeah, I knew you kept grilling that at me. I said, well, you want to know what? I got to fucking try that. And then I talked to the guy, and he liked, just like you guys, he said, oh, you did a good job on the Cyberpunk. But he mentioned you. He said, the guy, he go, both of you. He said, you got a couple guys that were in the game. He says, yeah, they're right. The martial arts is really good. I was like, you're going to run that for me then, right? He's like, I can. I was like, when? So I didn't want to say anything until I knew for sure, but I only talked to him like about, well, he emailed me last night. So last night he emailed me to officially give me a date when he was coming. I knew it was August. I didn't want to say anything. So got him coming in August, and we're going to do that. And we're going to talk about some of the expansion stuff. It's what you asked me about before, Philo, as well, and Zeg. Some of the expansion material. He actually has that. He actually has some great fucking shit. So he's bringing it all with him. And he's going to help me, put it all together. So there you go. At the end of it, I hope you guys heard, Philo, I think you've been around. Before I end the stream, I'll do one more run over the streams for this month. Tomb of Horror. Now, I got 2 weeks of specials on D&D, right? So tomorrow, for the next 4 straight days, are going to be fucking streams. 3 of them are going to be D&D. Tomorrow is Tomb of Horrors. Thursday is Dungeoneer Survival Guide and Wilderness Survival Guide and the Manual of Planes all in one go. Friday is Old School Essentials and the OSR. Saturday is Marvel Superheroes. So I'm still making sure to do my normal Saturday games. The next week on Wednesday, on the August 12th, will be D&D First Edition. I know you've heard about this before. Lankmar, Lankhmar. I think there's a dungeon crawl version of it, but I'm covering the First Edition version of it, Lankmar. And then I'm doing a second look, a part 2 of OD&D and Beckme. I'm calling it a second look. I've already done a stream on both those games, doing a part 2. And then the last one for the D&D 2 weeks will be on August 14th, Deities and Demigods. But for you non-D&D people out there, or people that just want to hear a bit more about than just D&D, you should look up the thing called the Morrow Project. The MORROW project, the Morrow Project. That is a fucking good game. And for Mr. Black Rose, on the 19th, on Wednesday, is the members only Warhammer Fantasy Role Play. I know you'll just want to be in on that discussion with me. So that will be our discussion. And then that Thursday on the 21st, I'm going to be covering 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. And on that Saturday, I'll be covering Immortal, the Invisible War. The next Wednesday on the 26th, I'll be covering Most Guard role-playing game. And that will be members only. And then that Thursday on the 28th, I'll be covering basic fantasy RPG. And the last stream of August will be the tabletop role-playing game known as Over the Edge. I hear you. There's a little bit of the stuff talk. I had some shit. I don't know how the little vague stuff you can flip through it there. Miles, dude, I'm right at the end. But here's the good news, Miles. I'll be streaming for 4 straight days starting tomorrow. Look at the list. D&D special for 2 weeks. From Wednesday to Friday is D&D, and I'm doing super Marvel superheroes on Saturday. Next week will be another 3 days of D&D. So check that out. 2 Mahors is tomorrow. Okay, guys. I love you. I got a bunch of things to do tonight. So I got to prepare for the D&D stuff. Make sure I'm all good. Okay. I love y'all. Talk to you soon.